was about the age of 4. We used to go every year to one of the parades in the city. Always after the horses, and I knew this as a little boy, was the street cleaners. The street cleaners came by after the horses, and I thought the street cleaners were awesome. So I used to say all the time, this is what I wanted to be. The first thing I remember wanting to be was I wanted to be a street cleaner.
Is that still plan B?
No, I don't know if it is. Yeah. One of the defining probably moments in my life occurred when my parents started to have marriage problems, and I was away at college, but I remember not even knowing that things were there was troubles at home. My awakening to this reality was my dad come down for a ski trip, supposedly. I remember him telling me that he no longer loved my mom at the end of that trip, and it just floored me. I was stunned and surprised. And so I remember it just sort of shook my whole world, everything that I took for granted. But I remember having to start asking myself, or at least I started asking myself, what matters? What's important? What has value? The first time I think that I ever thought seriously the priesthood was when I was in college. The way I like to describe it usually when I'm speaking to children is I'd say that it's like there's this rope or a string tied around your heart, and you start to feel this pull. A friend of mine, he asked me if I'd ever considered being a priest, and I thought he was crazy for asking me, because I was in a serious relationship for about a year at that point in time, and so I was really frustrated with him. It was difficult because I remember distinctly thinking to myself, what is this about, and what's going on, and where is this coming from? Because at that time in my life, my family was in crisis. I had left my faith, or at least was not practicing, and the girl that I started dating was from a strong Protestant family, missionary parents. That meant that all of a sudden I got kind of a crash course in apologetics and an exposure to the Bible, and had to kind of defend my faith and to understand it. And so a lot of times our date nights were kind of funny. We would go to this little pub, drink beer, play board games, and have theological discussions. I remember wanting to tell her my hopes and my dreams. It was like I wanted to have a cabin in the mountains next to a glacier-fed lake and chop wood all day long and sit on the porch. So I share this with her, and then there's like this silence. I'm waiting for her to respond when I'm done sharing. And she asked this question, what does that have to do with God? And I didn't have an answer. She had just thrown a rock and shattered the whole thing, and it all fell to the floor as dust. And she was the one who helped me to discover, or to rediscover maybe, the beauty of my faith. We'd come to a point where she had basically said, well, I'm ready to marry you, but what's your decision? And I remember at that point, it started to get complicated, because she had just also started making a decision to go into ministry in her denomination. And I told her that I would give her a decision after I got back from World Youth Day at the end of that month. So I went to Toronto with this specifically on my mind. This was kind of like my, God, this is why I'm on pilgrimage, this is why I'm going to World Youth Day, I need an answer from you.
When I set out from ruined lands.
I think it was the first Mass that John Paul II, St. John Paul II had showed up. We were waiting and waiting and waiting for him to come, and then all of a sudden you could hear the chopper coming. It's in the distance, and people started saying, he's coming, and everybody was excited, and people were crying, and there was this pandemonium in a very weird way. I remember, what am I going to do? And I borrowed a phone from one of our group leaders, and I phoned home to my mom, and I just said, Mom, it's me, and I said, and the Pope's here, he's coming. And as soon as I said that, my voice cracked, and I started crying, and she started crying.
Faith is not an idle grace. Guide my fears and lead my way.
I went for communion at the end of the Mass, and receiving communion, I went back to my sort of wet spot on the ground, because it had rained like crazy that morning, and I knelt down in the grass, and I remember kneeling down and just, at that moment, having completely forgot why I was there or what I was searching from the Lord, I got an answer, and it was just, no, you're not to marry her. And I remember, again, as difficult as that was to hear, I knew it was right.
Give him grace to live.
So I started the application for the seminary, and it was starting to sort of feel like it was something that I could do.
You took me in and
What
washed
was it like being ordained? That's a tough question. It's a bit unreal. Sometimes you feel like you're a bridge, or like you're spanning the gap between God and earth, or God and people. And so there's something really kind of expansive about it that's hard to put into words.
Oh, you take me as I am. Oh, now I understand.
After I was ordained, my spiritual director had told me to go on a vacation. I went on a little cruise somebody had recommended to me, and it was the first or second night on the boat. I woke up in the morning and I had this thought, oh my goodness, I'm a priest.
Greatest gift to give a man is to give him grace to live again.